Hello everyone, now let us discuss about urinary system part 1. We will be discussing the anatomy of urinary system, and in part 1 we will be discussing the anatomy of kidneys. The urinary system, it contributes to homeostasis by altering blood composition, pH, volume and pressure, and it maintains the blood osmolarity, excreting the waste and foreign substances and producing hormones. The parts of urinary system are: urinary system consists of two kidneys, two ureters, one urinary bladder and one urethra. After the kidneys filter the blood plasma, they return most of the water and solutes to the bloodstream. The remaining water and solutes constitute urine, which passes through the ureters and is stored in the urinary bladder until it is excreted from the body through the urethra. Coming to nephrology. Nephro means kidney, ology means study of. Nephrology is the scientific study of anatomy, physiology and pathology of kidneys, and the branch of medicine that deals with the male and female urinary systems and the male reproductive system is called as urology. And a physician who specializes in this branch of medicine is called urologist. Here you can find these are the kidneys, right kidney and left kidney. Next is, this is ureter, this is the urinary bladder, this is the urinary bladder, and finally this is the urethra through which the urine passes. Here you can see the anterior view of right kidney. This is the adrenal gland. This is the inferior vena cava, and these two are the suprarenal arteries. This is the renal artery, this is the renal vein, and this is the kidney. This tube is the ureter. Coming to the functions of the urinary systems, the kidneys regulate the blood volume and compositions, help regulate the blood pressure, pH and glucose levels. And they produce two hormones, calcitriol and erythropoietin, and excrete the waste in urine. Ureters, they transport urine from kidneys to urinary bladder, and the urinary bladder, it stores the urine and expels it into urethra. Urethra finally discharges the urine from the body. Coming to the overview of kidney functions. The kidneys do the major work of the urinary systems. The other parts of the system are mainly passageways and storage areas. The functions of kidneys include the following. First thing is regulation of blood ionic compositions. The kidneys help regulate the blood levels of several ions, most importantly sodium, potassium, calcium, chlorine and phosphate ions. The next is they help in the regulation of blood pH. Kidneys excrete a variable amount of hydrogen ions into the urine and conserve the bicarbonate ions, which are an important buffer for H plus ions in the blood. Both these activities help regulate the blood pH. Next is regulation of blood volume. The kidneys adjust the blood volume by conserving or eliminating water in the urine. An increase in the blood volume increases the blood pressure, and a decrease in the blood volume decreases the blood pressure. Next is regulation of blood pressure. The kidneys also help maintain regulate the blood pressure by secreting the enzyme renin, which activates the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone pathway. Increased renin causes an increase in the blood pressure. And next function is maintenance of blood osmolarity. By separately regulating the loss of water and loss of solutes in the urine, the kidneys maintain a relatively constant blood osmolarity close to 300 milliosmoles per liter. The next is production of hormones. The kidneys produce two hormones, calcitriol, the active form of vitamin D, which helps regulate the calcium homeostasis, and erythropoietin, it stimulates the production of red blood cells. The next is regulation of blood glucose level. Like the liver, the kidneys can also use amino acid glutamine in gluconeogenesis, the synthesis of new glucose molecules. They can then release the glucose into blood to help maintain a normal blood glucose level. Next is excretion of waste and foreign substances. By forming urine, the kidneys help excrete waste substances that have no useful function in the body. Some waste excreted in urine result from metabolic reactions in the body. These include ammonia and urea from the deamination of amino acids, bilirubin from the catabolism of hemoglobin, creatinine from the breakdown of creatine phosphate in muscular fibers, and uric acid from the catabolism of nucleic acids. Other wastes excreted in urine are foreign substances from the diet such as drugs and environmental toxins. Coming to anatomy and histology of kidneys. The paired kidneys are reddish, kidney bean shaped organs located just above the waist, below the peritoneum and posterior wall of the abdomen. Because of their position is posterior to peritoneum of the abdominal cavity, the organs are said to be retroperitoneal. Because of their position, they are called as retroperitoneal. That is, they are behind the peritoneum. And the kidneys are located between the levels of last thoracic and third lumbar vertebrae, a position where they are partially protected by ribs 11 and 12. If the lower ribs are fractured, they can puncture the kidneys and cause significant, even life-threatening damage. The right kidney is slightly lower than the left because liver occupies considerable space on the right side superior to the kidney. And a typical adult kidney is 10 to 12 centimeters, that is 4 to 5 inches long and 5 to 7 centimeters wide and 3 centimeters thick, about the size of a bar soap, and has a mass of 135 to 150 grams. And the concave medial border of each kidney faces the vertebral column. Near the center of the concave border is an indentation called the renal ileum. Renal means kidney. Renal ileum, through which the ureter emerges from the kidney along with blood vessels, lymphatic vessels and nerves. Renal ileum is the place through which the ureter emerges from the kidney. And the three layers of tissue surround each kidney. Three layers of tissue surround each kidney. The first one is deep layer, the renal capsule. It is a smooth, transparent sheet of dense, irregular connective tissue that is continuous with the outer coat of the ureter. It serves as a barrier against trauma and helps maintain the shape of the kidney. Renal capsule serves as a barrier against trauma and helps maintain the shape of the kidney. The middle layer is the adipose capsule. It is a mass of fatty tissue surrounding the renal capsule. It also protects the kidney from trauma and holds it firmly in place within the abdominal cavity. The next is superficial layer. The renal fascia is another thin layer of dense irregular connective tissue that anchors the kidney to the surrounding structures and to the abdominal wall. On the anterior surface of the kidney, the renal fascia is deep to the peritoneum. Here you can see the position and various layers of the kidney. This is the position of the kidney and the various layers are renal fascia, adipose tissue and renal capsule. This is the right kidney and this is the left kidney. Blue color one is the renal vein and red color one is the renal artery. And this place is the renal ileum indentation. This is the parasagittal section through the right kidney. Here you can clearly differentiate the various layers. This one, the first one is the renal fascia. The thin layer is the renal fascia. This is the adipose tissue. Immediately above renal fascia is the adipose tissue, and finally this layer is the renal capsule, if you can see here. These are the three layers of the kidney. Coming to the internal anatomy of the kidneys, a frontal section through the kidneys reveals two distinct regions. A superficial light red region called as renal cortex. Cortex means rind or bark. And a deep darker reddish brown inner region called as renal medulla. The renal medulla consists of several cone-shaped renal pyramids. and the base of each renal pyramid faces the renal cortex and its apex, it is called as renal papillae, points towards the renal ileum. The base of each renal pyramid faces the renal cortex. Base faces the renal cortex, whereas the apex, it points towards the renal ileum, and the apex is called as renal papilla. The renal cortex is a smooth textured area extending from the renal capsule to the base of the renal pyramids and into the space between them. It is divided into outer cortical zone and inner juxtamedullary zone. Those portions of the renal cortex that extend between the renal pyramids are called as renal columns. Together, the renal cortex and the renal pyramids of the renal medulla constitute parenchyma or functional portion of the kidney. Within the parenchyma are the functional units of the kidney. The functional units of the kidney are nephrons. Within the parenchyma are the functional units of the kidney, about 1 million microscopic structures called nephrons. Filtrate or filtered fluid. Filtrate formed by the nephrons drains into the large papillary ducts which extend through the renal papillae of the pyramid. And the papillary ducts, they drain into cup-shaped structures called as major and minor calyces or cups. Singular, it is calyx. Each kidney has 8 to 18 minor calyces and 2 to 3 major calyces. A minor calyx receives urine from the papillary duct of one renal papillae and delivers it to a major calyx. And once the filtrate enters the calyces, it becomes urine because no further reabsorption can occur. The reason for this is that simple epithelium of the nephron and ducts become transitional epithelium in the calyces. The simple epithelium of the nephron and ducts becomes the transitional epithelium in the calyces. Hence, there is no further reabsorption in the calyces. And once the filtrate enters the calyces, it becomes urine. And from the major calyces, the urine drains into a single large cavity called as renal pelvis. And then through the ureter to the urinary bladder. And the ileum expands into cavity within the kidney called as renal sinus, which contains part of the renal pelvis, the calyces and branches of the renal blood vessels and nerves. And the adipose tissue helps stabilize the position of these structures in the renal sinus. Now coming to the internal anatomy of the kidneys. The outer portion is the renal cortex and the inner portion is the renal medulla. Renal medulla is composed of renal columns, renal pyramid and renal papillae. This is the renal sinus. And finally, this is the renal capsule. Here you can also find, and here you can find the functional unit of the kidney. That is the nephron. Coming to path of the urine drainage. From the collecting duct, it passes through papillary duct, and from papillary duct, it passes to minor calyx. And from minor calyx to major calyx, this is the major calyx, this is the minor calyx, this is the papillary duct, and this is the collecting duct. And from major calyx to renal pelvis, this space is the renal pelvis. And finally from renal pelvis to ureter, and from ureter to urinary bladder. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe for further videos on medical coding and CPC training.